Whoa, buddy, put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
That was just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show, streaming live across the world.
Oh, yeah, baby. Live around the world on the internet at MichaelDukesShow.com and across the state of Alaska on this, your favorite radio station and or FM translator. Hello and good morning to you. It is Monday, Funday Monday. Hello and welcome to the program. Thanks for coming in and joining us. We have got quite a few things to talk about this morning here on the program as we get ready to crank things up for the week. Here we are less than, 9 days away from the end of the session. And still a lot of things to discuss here internally in the state of Alaska. Not a lot of headway being made on the state's budget. In fact, there was some lamentations in the paper that the legislature's just kind of, the implication was that the legislature, specifically the House, was not doing its job because they should have it all done by now, right? It should already be over. It's obvious to the big, fat heads over there, big brains over at the newspaper and on parts of the legislature that, boy, we should really be working on this. And we just haven't done it yet. And why aren't we focusing on this? And why are we talking about these ancillary bills that are not really doing anything good for us? In fact, they're hurting us. And the hand wringing. It's ironic to watch. It really is ironic to watch. But we're going to talk about that here this morning as we go through. And we are going to take some phone calls because I want to see what you guys want to. I've got a quiz. I've got a poll. I've got some things that I want to talk about outside of politics as well, and we're going to go over that. And so I guess that's it for today. That's kind of how we have everything lined up for today. And I'm hoping that you guys will. I'm hoping that you guys will participate, and so that we have a little bit of a better feel for what's going on, and we know that we're talking about what you guys want to talk about. How about that? All right. So some of the headlines for today. And I heard about this weekend as I was traveling up and down the peninsula. There was a lot of people that were kind of happy with some of the things that they've been hearing about going on. The Homer judge has been indicted on a felony charge of perjury. This many believe this has to do with the fight over the Alaska grand jury. Although proceedings from the grand jury are secret, and there's just a lot of supposition going on, this might be something, and we'll talk about that here in just a little bit. We've also got, again, like I said, some wild hand-wringing on how the House and the Senate are not done with the budget yet, and they want we gotta get going on. James Brooks actually has a good article over at the Alaska Beacon talking about this, and he highlights a couple interesting things that I want to go over as well. Plus, we've got a look at what's happening as far as public testimony opportunities that are coming up here in the next 3 or 4 days. And so we'll go over that as well. Some places where you can have your voice heard on some of these issues and some of the bills and elements that are coming up in front of the legislature for this week. I mean, we are literally coming down to 9 days away right now. So by Wednesday of next week, this whole thing is supposed to be done. And I guess we'll see what happens with that. I'm not convinced that we're going to make it out in the allotted time, simply because I think that there is. I just think that there's just too much of a divided nature in the legislature right now, and so we'll see what that's all about as we go through here this morning and talk about all these things. But I guess first and foremost, what I should do is remind you of a couple things. I got a chance to meet with some members of the listening audience this weekend while I was down on the peninsula, including some members of the Common Sense Corps, which is our cool kids club. It's it's like a fan club that helps support the show. And so if you haven't gone out and checked it out, I recommend you do so. You just go to michaeldukeshow.com and you click on join the Corps there at the top of the page. And that will, all the monies there that are raised there help keep the show rolling and include improvements. I was just talking with a couple people about how the funds from the show helped us redo the whole studio back in December, and we've got a lot more. We got fancier. New sound equipment, new video equipment, new lighting, new little bit of everything. And so if you'd like to help support the show, you enjoy what we do, don't always have to agree with us, but if you enjoy the conversations and everything else, go over to michaeldukeshow.com and click on join the Corps. And that's where that's where you help out and be part of it. Plus you get access to our private Facebook group and all kinds of stuff. So go check it out. All right. That being said, let's get the phone lines turned on at 907-433-3150, 907-433-3150. Phone lines are up and running right now. And of course, this program's brought to you today by your friends over there at Satellite West. You could find them at satellitewest.com, where they will keep you connected across the state, no matter where you are. I mean, where I was down at the very end of the highway, the very end of the spit. It'll keep you connected there, and it'll keep you connected all through the whole place that I drove through this weekend, back and forth. Any place in there you can find, because there's a couple dead spots in there. I will say there's a couple dead spots in there where you've got no cell phone coverage, no internet, no nothing else. If you want to stay connected, then Satellite West is the place to go. And you can find them at satellitewest.com. And they've got big dealers all over the state, including Radar Alaska out on the Spit. I saw them this week as well, as I drove by there. You can't miss them. Satellite West, proud sponsors of the Michael Duke Show. So the phone lines are open, and any topic is fair game today. But here is what I'm going to be talking about. I'm going to be talking about the budget. I'm going to be talking about some of the new bills that are being passed. We're going to talk about the public testimony, both your opportunities for it and the fact that the legislature is trying to change some procedures due to the fact that they have had some tremendous phone loads over the last few weeks here. The fifth time this year, the public has overloaded the public testimony phone lines. And so they're trying to figure out how to make all that happen. They're trying to figure out how to get all those phone calls. And so they're talking about changing some of the procedures. I mean, I've talked about why don't you just put it on the road system and then people can just drive to it. Just put the legislative system session on the road system, and then you don't have to worry about clogged up phone lines because people could actually show up. That's one of the things we're going to talk about. We'll talk about, like I said before, the grand jury stuff and more. Oh, homeschooling. We're going to talk about homeschooling too. So that's the list of stuff for this morning. Meanwhile, we've got a line on hold already. So we'll go over there just to get things started and see what we can see, shall we? 907-433-3150 is the phone number for those that would like to participate in the show this morning. Feel free to do so. Let's crank over here and see what's going on. Good morning. Who's this? Where are you calling from? Hello, caller. I can see you there. All right. Well, apparently the caller is just hanging out, not wanting to talk to us. Let me make sure that we're all good here.
All participants are muted.
It still works, so everything's working except for the caller. Let's try that one more time. Good morning, caller. Who's this? Where you call? Hello. Hello. Go ahead.
This is Bonnie.
Hello, Bonnie. What's on your mind? Go ahead, Bonnie. All right. Well, I don't know what's going on with Bonnie, but we obviously can't hear her. All right. That's fine. That's fine. Let's talk about a little bit of what's going on. Let's talk a little bit about what's coming up for bills that are going to be coming up this week. Coming up today, tomorrow, Wednesday, and Thursday. Wednesday's a pretty light day. They only have one bill, SB 95, which is about specialty license plates for different organizations. That's the only bill that's being heard right now. On May the 10th at 9 a.m. in Senate Finance. That's the only bill. But Thursday is going to be busy, and today is fairly busy as well. At 9 a.m. this morning, we've got two separate committees, House Fisheries and Senate Finance. House Fisheries is going to be hearing HB 169, which is the Fisheries Rehabilitation Permit Project bill, at 9 a.m. in House Fisheries. And then Senate Finance is going to hear two different bills, one SB 140, which is about internet for schools, and the second bill, which is probably the bigger of the two, is going to be the Carbon Offset Program on State Lands Bill, SB 48, talking about the governor's proposed carbon offset program. That's also going to be today in Senate Finance at 9 a.m. So they're going to, I don't know which bill they're going to take up first since they're both limited at the same thing. And then tomorrow, the Senate Finance Committee at 1:30 is going to take up the Elections, Voter Registration, and Campaigns Bill, the electoral bill, SB 138. And then House State Affairs is going to take up at 3 p.m. the Repeal the Ranked Choice Open Primary bill, HB 4. So tomorrow is all about elections, both in Senate Finance at 1:30 and in House State Affairs at 3 p.m. So if you want to get in on that, you make sure that you want to either get down to the LIO or see if you can dial in. But again, they're having huge problems with the phones getting overloaded, and I'm sure we'll be talking about that here in just a bit. All right, so we're going to continue. Got more coming up. We're going to dive down into some of these issues. We're going to take some of your calls, see what you have to say, and we will return. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Your phone calls as well at 907-433-3150. Feel free to give us a ring. We will be back with more right after these messages.
If you missed the show, you can listen to it on your time with Dukes On Demand. Oh, and it's free. Like America used to be. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Okay, we're in the break right now. I see I got one line on hold. I needed to check something here to see why I could hear Bonnie, but she was not responding to us. Why that is, I don't know. I see the input's going back to her, so that's all good. That's all good there. I'm just going over to make sure that nothing got bumped around or something. Shouldn't have, but that's how it goes. Nope, that's all. It's all going back out to them. All right, well, let's go back over to the phones right now to see who this is, and maybe we can hear them to get them set up for the return to the radio. Good morning. Who's this? Where are you calling from? Hello, caller. Okay. Well, I don't know who the caller is.
Hello.
Hello. Hello, I can hear you. I don't know if they can hear me. They obviously heard me calling, talking up until the point where I took the phone call. Caller, go ahead. No. Well, all right. Well, we'll put him back on hold. I don't know what's going on with that, but I could see all the levels of me talking to everybody, and I could see their levels calling back. So maybe one of you folks in the chat room want to call and talk to me and hear me so that we can get the phones. I mean, everything looks like it's working. It might just be the caller. Might just be the caller. I don't know. Sometimes that happens. Go ahead, and the phone's not working, says Bonnie in the chat room. Well, we hear you, so I don't know what's going on. If you, like I said, maybe one of you wants to call in and help me out here. 907-433-3150. Let's see what you guys have to say about this. House Ways and Means is meeting every day this week at 6 p.m. and has great bills to hear and pass out of committee, says Donna. Well, that's weird. That didn't get onto the list from Must Read. I wonder what's going on with that. All right. Never cease to disappoint. Tripod is going out. Well, the tripod went out, but it didn't pull the pin on the clock because it hasn't traveled far enough downriver yet. I thought that was kind of hysterical. All right. We got another call on hold. Well, we just had people. Boy, just call, just bam, bam, bam. On, off, on, off. I had one. Now I have two. Now I have one. Maybe it's a whole deal. Let's get over here to the phones and try it one more time. Good morning. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Good morning, Mike. It's Bill in Anchor Point.
Hello.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yep, sure can.
Okay. Well, good.
Working on this end.
Yeah, good. Well, maybe again, sometimes it's just, I don't know, connections with the caller or whatever it was. So I appreciate that. Thank you, Bill, for helping out. Appreciate you calling in. Any thoughts for you today? Any thoughts from you today before I let you go?
No, I'm good to go this morning, buddy.
Thanks for helping us out.
Show.
Appreciate it, Bill.
Appreciate the great show, bud.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. It's Bill calling in, so we know it works. So it's not just me. Okay, good. I thought maybe I was losing my mind. Interesting that the majority limitations came from the minority who were not all that concerned with the fiscal plan last year, or in the case of one of those quoted, for the last 6 years. Don't you love that? Oh, now we're fiscally responsible. Couldn't possibly spend from savings because that would just not be fiscally responsible, even though I've been part of a majority that spent from savings for the last 10 years. But that would just not be fiscally responsible, only because we didn't control it. Right? Right? It's amazing how that goes. All right. We're down to the last 30 seconds here, getting ready to jump back into it. And Kevin, I see you've been in the chat room. Feel free to call in this morning if you want about the homeschooling bill, which I'm going to get into here in just a few moments. We're going to get all that squared away. Okay, scandal in Nenana. Tripod. All right, here we go. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Okay. Well, we took a phone call during the break, so we know the phones work. Sometimes it's, just people's phones not working on their end more than anything else. Although it makes me doubt myself, which I hate. I hate it when I doubt myself. Everything's up and working though, so we know everything's just fine. Give us a call if you'd like. 907-433-3150, 907-433-3150. In response to the different bills that I was just talking about, Donna Ardwin, who works for Representative Ben Carpenter, the chair of the House Ways and Means Committee, has said that House Ways and Means is meeting every day this week at 6 p.m. and has a whole bunch of great bills to hear and pass out of committee. And that, of course, is the House Ways and Means is the committee that has all of the fiscal plan bills in it right now. Oh, but they face from outrage this weekend. We're going to talk about that in a minute because they dared, I tell you, to take an opportunity to potentially bolster homeschooling stuff. But, oh, man, they're just, bad. They're evil now. Well, maybe not evil, but kind of a what were they thinking kind of thing. But every night this week, 6 p.m., House Ways and Means Committee will be having a variety of bills in front of them, all of them surrounding the fiscal plan for the state of Alaska, which is really what we need. And that's what the governor's asked for. All right, let's go over and try some phone lines right now to see what you guys have to say. Good morning. Who's this? Where are you calling from? What's on your mind?
Morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, there's a little bit of an echo, Michael. It's Kevin McCabe. How are you?
Good morning, Kevin. It's good to hear from you. I was just going to get into the bill, so hold on a second. You can just hide quietly there on the phones for the second while I tell folks what the palaver, the fervor that people have gotten, that are all up in arms about the fact that how dare the House, who basically haven't passed a fiscal plan. Oh man, you guys haven't. That the House Ways and Means Committee tasked with addressing Alaska's long-term fiscal plan is yet to advance any of the dozen bills referred to it that would levy new taxes or change the structure of the permanent fund dividend or anything else. This whole article goes on to talk about how dare you guys, after not doing any of that, decide to take up a bill, HB 165, that would raise the amount of funding per homeschooled child from $5,300 to more than $7,000 and would send that money directly to the parents instead of funneling it through a approved correspondence school and everything else. And you're quoted at the end of the article, basically said that why would you ever push back against something that's good for kids, which I thought that was good, because isn't that the answer that we always hear? Why do you hate children? Why would you push back on something that's for children? So Kevin, give us your thoughts on this bill and some of the details on it. And because quite honestly, I hadn't even heard about this bill until it came up in the news.
Well, sure, Michael. It's sort of interesting. There's a big clamor for the BSA. We need to increase the BSA, and people forget that the BSA is just sort of the beginning, and then you have all the multipliers, and it ends up being, I think, average student in Alaska after the BSA increase, or after the BSA is multiplied by the average daily membership and the intensive needs and all that, students average about $18,000 is what we give to the school districts per student. Of the state does. And, we wanted to increase the HB 165 contemplates increasing the amount of money that goes to correspondence students from about 2,800. I think that's what Raven gets, 2,800, and that's controlled by the district a little bit, but they get 2,800 per student, goes to the parents to homeschool your kids for correspondence schools. And we wanted to bring that up to about 7,200. We in the House are focused on education and on our children, not on feeding the school districts a BSA increase. It's unfortunate that they put a eighth grader on there with some sort of discussion about the BSA increase, which is a hugely unfortunate leveraging of a young man who really doesn't know what he's talking about, but he's obviously been fed from the school district administrators on what to say, and probably from the teachers and NEA. But that doesn't, even a fraction of that won't even go to the classrooms. It won't go to the teachers. It won't go to the student. It won't go to reducing sizes in the classrooms. It goes to the school districts,
Right.
and they use it for roof repairs and new snow plows and all that sort of thing. So it's, the House majority and many of us are focused on our kids. And that's what HB 165 tried to do, is focus on our kids and get parents that want to homeschool and correspondence school enough money where they can actually do it properly and afford their kids things such as CTE education, maybe a welding class, a swimming class, that sort of thing.
Right. No, I mean, I think it's interesting that you kind of, I think, hit the nail on the head when you basically said at the end, that this is about kids and not about schools. There is a difference, right? I mean, there is a difference, because that's what they keep coming back to. Oh, this is about schools. This is about schools. No, it should be about the children and what's the maximum benefit of the children, not to the schools, not to the the teachers unions, not to the administrative overhead, not to the machine that is the schools. This is about making sure that kids are benefiting in the long run. And as you pointed out, a lot of these monies, although there used to be a rule that a BSA increase, or that the BSA, that a good chunk of it had to go directly into the classrooms, that's been gone for years. And so now we're trying to find ways to make sure that that money actually gets to the classroom, to the kids where it affects them. And now people are upset about it.
Sure. That's the 70% rule that's been gone since, I think, 2014 or 2015, something like that. And of course, the school administrators will tell you that 72% of the money still goes to the classroom, and it's just not true, because they include administration in the classroom. So, it all kind of depends on how you parse the money out. But my big question to all of these folks is the school there for the kids, or are the kids there for the school? I mean, we need to decide, are we going to focus on our children, or are we going to focus on infrastructure and big business that the schools have become?
Let me ask you a question about some of the constitutional aspects of it, because I know that was kind of covered during the hearing on it, because there was questions about whether or not this was constitutional, because there's a provision that says no money shall be paid from public funds for the direct benefit of any religious or other private education institution. And so the question becomes, that is kind of a sticky wicket. As far as, if you look at it in plain language, what was the response, and what are the sponsors of the bills? What was the word that came back during the meeting itself over those concerns?
Yeah, so we didn't really get into that much in that hearing. Certainly that's covered. Alaska's Constitution has sort of a partial Blaine Amendment in our language. And, one of the ways that you can get by that is we're not paying it to a school. we are paying it to the parents, like Arizona does, which they call a education savings account, and you pay the money to the parents, and then the parents use it to purchase a approved school or a correspondence program, such as Raven or one of those. Idea, I think you did Idea with your kids,
Right.
and so that sort of gets past the we're not giving it to a secular or religious or private school. We're giving it to the parents, and then they decide which school curricula they want to purchase, and how they want it, the CTE they want to do, whether it be welding at NIT or something like that.
Some people may say, well, that's just a kind of a sneaky way, or the thing, but that's the law. The law says no direct benefit to those, no direct payments to those kind of things. It doesn't say you can't give it to the people and let the people decide where they want to spend the money. And that's kind of the out on this, right?
Right. And that's the whole, that goes back. I mean, we're using different words, but that's the whole vouchers argument, that's been around for years. So this bill actually increases the vouchers, if you will, or the money to the parents, and gives them greater choices in curricula, and expands the horizons that they can use for their children. There was some concern about, well, we don't trust the parents. Representative Gray was very concerned that some parents were going to take that and use it for a field trip to, say, Disneyland. But as you know from Idea, that you're very restricted in what you can use the money for.
Right. No, I will be honest with you. A lot of Representative Gray's comments were, well, quite honestly, as a homeschooling parent, they were kind of offensive to me. And I think it's, he obviously just doesn't think that parents are qualified to teach their own children. He said the message that I think we're sending is that all kids would do better if their parents who don't have teaching credentials and never have taught a child before stayed home and taught. And I'm like, yep, that's exactly what I think. I don't necessarily need to have teaching credentials to be able to figure out how to teach my kids how to do reading, writing, and arithmetic, which is what the basics of what we really need, and then encourage their love of learning beyond that. Again, it's kind of that, and there was a paragraph above that said opponents also said that homeschooling is not a good fit for many families in the state, including immigrants, people for whom English is not a primary language, parents who work full-time, and parents who think that certified and experienced teachers may be better educators than they could be. Again, we're not. Oh, it's setting us up for this kind of us versus them mentality, right?
Sure. And, my response to Representative Gray was, it's a voluntary thing. If you don't think you can handle it because of your job, or if both of you work and you don't think you can handle it, then obviously, as a parent, the best choice you would make for your kids is to put them into a public school or some other private school that you have to pay for. If you can handle this, if you have a stay-at-home mom, or you think your job is such that you could handle the homeschooling, then maybe it's for you, and you should have the opportunity and the ability to do this. It's certainly not directive; it's permissive, and this bill is.
Well, and that's one of the nice things about a lot of the correspondence systems, like, for example, Idea, the one that I'm most familiar with, is that if you as a parent don't feel that you're equipped to be able to do all the teaching, maybe you feel like you can do the reading, writing, and arithmetic, but then you get into, I don't know, higher math, or maybe some of the sciences, things that you're not ready for. These programs have contact teachers that will work with your child one-on-one, that will work with you as a parent educator, that will be able to plug you into the resources that you need to be able to get your kids through all this. My kid, who was struggling with math, my youngest, who was struggling with math for the longest time, got his math up finally. And all of a sudden we discovered that at one point he on his own was out there taking physics courses, like these basic physics courses, because it was part of another curricula that he had access to. And he was just doing it on his own because it interested him. I mean, I would have never thought the kid who had originally struggled with math would be interested in that, but the teacher helped him and he got in there. I mean, it's amazing. It's amazing what these kids can learn if you just give them the basic fundamental tools of, reading, writing, and arithmetic, and then let them find their own path. It's an amazing opportunity.
right? And we hear the argument all the time from the teachers and the administrators, the wailing, "Oh my God, it's going to double the class sizes, and we're going to." Well, isn't this a way to create a smaller class size to allow some families that might want to do this but couldn't afford to do it prior to now?
But they had an answer for that one too, didn't they, though, Kevin? Didn't they have the answer for that one? Well, I mean, it may be a smaller class size, but, they've still got to keep the lights on and the teacher still has to be there. So, you can't have it both ways. You can't have classes that are overfilled with too many students. And now you're like, well, we just can't not get, I mean, again, it comes back to, is the system there for the kids or is it there for the schools and the administration and all that other stuff itself? I mean, it's kind of crazy. Where does the bill go from here, Kevin? It's done in committee, and I know it's probably not going anywhere in the next 9 days, but where does it go from here?
I'm not real sure. My guess is it probably has a finance referral. So it will certainly go to finance, and I'm not sure if there's a committee in between there or not.
Well, we'll see what happens with that. I want to talk with you for just a minute about defined benefits, but I'm up against the break. Can you hang out with me for a second? Are you busy?
No, sure.
Okay.
I'll hang on.
All right. Well, we're going to take a quick break then, and we'll be back in just a moment. Kevin McCabe is our guest. We're talking about a couple bills that he's been privy to. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit about defined benefits. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. We return with more right after this.
Running on 100% pure beard power. Oh, also some coffee. We dip our beard in coffee.
Ha, nice beard.
The Michael Duke Show.
It astounds me, Kevin, that it seems like a lot of people, especially those who are opposed to the whole homeschooling idea, that, only certified teachers, that only those who are educated in the proper way can handle it. Just kind of the disdain. And I think Gray, I'm not meaning to pick on him too much, but he's the one that's quoted in the paper. This is just indicative of kind of the whole feeling of how dare you try and educate your own children because you lowly plebeian whatevers, you just don't understand what it really takes. And for years, America, we taught our own kids. We dealt with that. We did it in little one-room schools or we did it at home. This is not, just because we created this massive, monstrous educational behemoth doesn't mean that it still can't be done in the privacy of your own home or in learning pods or teacher shares or anything else.
Right. Well, especially with the with the school models that we have set up, the structures and the lesson plans and the way we move the parent or help the parent move the children through the lesson plans and through the school year and the goals and the sort of gateways that those lesson plans use. Those are a good guidance, and I think anybody that was educated in the United States can follow a lesson plan. I mean, that's what teachers do. Certainly there are great teachers out there that have a real heart for their children, and they're creative, and they put together great classes. And I have the utmost respect for teachers. I'm not saying anything against our teachers. What I am saying is that there should be a choice for parents that have decided that they don't want to put their children into public schools for whatever reason. Maybe it's you live up in Anderson and the school has 16 people in it and it's starting to slowly diminish and go away, and you want to be able to deal with your kid and teach your kid on your own. I mean, that should be a choice.
Right. No, I mean, I agree. And again, we didn't say anything bad today about teachers in general. That has nothing. I'm not even talking about the teachers. I'm talking about the system itself There are many teachers in there who are fighting and doing what they need to do. That's not what this is. Unfortunately, that's what they make. That's the counter argument or the straw man argument that they put. Well, why do you hate teachers? I don't hate teachers. I have many reasons why I homeschooled my kids. It had nothing to do necessarily specifically with specific teachers or anything else. And I should be able to do it. But just because somebody has got an education degree does not make them the only and sole arbiter of what is good for educating a child. I mean, you understand and you know your children better than anybody else, and each child has a different learning style or a different learning language, and you've got to figure that out. And doing it in a one-on-one basis at home is, in a lot of ways, and for many people, a better way. It's just different. For some people, it's better. Not for everybody, I guess. I mean, I don't know why everybody couldn't do it, but it's not about banging on the teachers. It's about giving the parents and encouraging the parents to do what I think is really their ultimate responsibility.
Right. And, it's interesting that the people that ask you, why do you hate teachers, or assume you hate teachers, they're not interested in Governor Dunleavy's retention bonus plan for teachers, the $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 retention bonus. They're not interested in giving teachers that at all. So, they as well seem to want to depress teachers and put teachers down. I'm telling you, we could increase the BSA $1,000, and a very slim percentage of it would go to teachers in classrooms.
Right.
It's just the way it is, and it's a.
No, I agree. I mean, it's kind of ironic to see how much of the money actually goes to overhead in the schools and everything else, with very little of it actually trickling down into the classroom. And you made the comment earlier that it all depends on how statistics, numbers, statistics, and damn liars, or whatever the quote is, because depending on how you slice it up, you could show it going anywhere. If they include the administrative overhead into the classroom number, then wow, there you go. That's it. But if you're looking at strictly what's in the classroom, we're not hitting anywhere near that 70th percentile, especially when we've got schools where you've got 3 or 4 administrators, for every four, 3 or 4 teachers, or in some cases 5 administrators for 4 teachers. I mean, we're getting to this overhead point to where it's tipping in the wrong direction, and we're paying for all the chiefs and not enough Indians. You know what I mean?
Right, and if you really look into it, if you look into the 72% that they claim goes to the classroom, a good chunk of it is taken up by the IT department, which is also considered part of the classroom.
Right. All right, well, hold the line, Kevin. We're going to be right back to you. We're going to continue the Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Please like and share the show. Like and follow the show page. Let's sit down and talk about all this. And here we go. Let's get on to it. Kevin McCabe is our guest. I suppose I should put the splash screen up with his name, but we're just going to continue on. Just going to keep going. Here we go. Common Sense Radio. All right, we're continuing now. Kevin McCabe was kind enough to call in and talk with us a little bit about the education bill, which, by the way, is going to go to House Education next. And that's where the bill is destined to go. And eventually it'll probably go to House Finance and everything else. But don't expect any great movements on this bill, HB 165, until probably next session. But Kevin was kind enough to come in and talk with us about that. Before we let him go, though, I wanted to talk a little bit about defined benefits. When the session started, the Senate said that they had 2 priorities. One was increasing the BSA to a significant amount, $800 and change was the original number thrown around. And they said their second priority was making sure that they reinstated the defined benefits program, which has gone pretty much nowhere. As of this point. It's had the bills. There's been a couple different bills, and they both had some hearings. The problem is that I don't see any real raw numbers or fiscal notes with any of this stuff. Kevin, what's going on in the House side anyway with defined benefits? And have we discovered how much this thing is actually going to cost if it happens to be implemented?
Well, there's several competing statistical analysis, if you will. I think that some of the folks that are pushing HB 22, they will say, "Oh my God, it's a conservative retirement plan," hoping that the word "conservative" in front of retirement defined benefit retirement plan makes it all better. But if you look at the Reason Foundation and others, this could cost us $9.2 billion in the next decade or so. So it could be close to $1 billion a year as we get further and further into the retirement. And the cost to the state is certainly a big factor for me. And I look at that and I think, how can we ever support that? We still have, depending on who you talk to, between 6.1 and $7 billion of liability left over from the last defined benefit defined benefit retirement system debacle that we had. But also for me, it's about our retirees. Why I say it time and time again, as a retiree, why would you want to trust the state legislature and a retirement manager employed by the state with your retirement? It just is incredible to me. As a union negotiator, I think there's some room in there. Say you were the city of Fairbanks firefighters, and your union negotiator went to the city of Fairbanks and said, "Hey, Fairbanks, instead of giving 10% of my employees' salary to the state, to the retirement system, how about if you just give it to each individual firefighter and have us put it in our 401s or our 457s?" To me, there's lots of room in there for that sort of negotiation that would make better financial sense for Fairbanks and better financial sense for the firefighter, who now gets to keep his retirement system and manage it all the way into retirement.
Right. That's the thing, self-directing it. Yeah, self-directing it so that you have control over where your retirement goes and what you can do and everything else. That makes it portable and all different kinds of things. I mean, why wouldn't you want that, to have more control over it, other than the fact that, the plans that the state has put forth in the past have all been pretty gold-plated. Why wouldn't you want direct control of that stuff?
Right. And you can manage it, if it's with Fidelity or T. Rowe Price or somebody like that, you can still manage it. You can direct the funds. Hey, I want more growth here, or I want more risk here, or I think you should get more into tech right now. You can certainly direct that even into retirement. With the state fund, you're just kind of stuck with your retirement, with what they give you. And to me, it just doesn't make good financial sense. And then, if you and your spouse both pass away, your retirement goes away. But if you have a 401k, it goes to your kids.
Right. It's transferable. Yeah, absolutely.
There's so many reasons for retirees not to lock themselves into the golden handcuffs. I can't believe that the unions are actually selling this to their members.
We're talking with Kevin McCabe, representative from the Matsu, about a couple different bills that have been going on down there, the education for homeschooling.
Did I lose you, Michael?
No, I'm sorry. We're talking with Kevin McCabe about the education for homeschooling and the defined benefits program. Kevin, we're down to the last 3 or 4 minutes of this segment, so let's just wrap it up here. We got 9 days. 9 days until the official end of the session. We see the lamentations in the newspaper about why would you guys take up this bill that we're talking about, the homeschool bill? I mean, there's so many more important things that are coming around and everything else. But as Donna pointed out, the House Ways and Means is putting out bills. They're going to be talking about stuff all this week to get all the pieces and parts out. So tell me, what do you think happens over the next 9 days here as we get ready and we sprint to the finish? Is something going to come across the line, or are we going to be here for another 30 days? What do you think?
Well, that's a really good question. I don't think anybody really knows. Certainly if we focus and put our minds to it, we can get out of here by the 17th. And I think there's certainly a desire for all 60 of us to get out of here. Nobody wants to stay, notwithstanding the arguments about, you just want the per diem and that kind of stuff. that's kind of nobody wants that. But 5 to 10 days is what it takes for a conference committee. So the problem is there's a little bit of gamesmanship going on right now. The Senate is actually hanging on. If you look at the James Brooks argument, or the James Brooks article, sorry, Senator Stedman's argument is they want to hold on to the budget for flexibility. Well, what that means is they're negotiating with us, or they're playing poker with us, if you will, with the House, to see what we will accept and what we won't accept before they send the budget over, so that so that they get their way, if you will.
Well, we've talked about this.
Knows?
We've talked about this in the past, right? I mean, we're winding the clock down here, and you're right. I was going to talk about that in a little bit here. Brooks is quoting Stedman as saying we're holding them in committee so that we can do stuff around. Basically, time compression as a weapon, right? I mean, that's kind of what you and I have talked about in the past.
Right, and that's a very effective tool that they can use. As I said, everybody wants to get out of here, and certainly the House majority is not going to vote to stay longer. If so, we'll have to see what happens as we get close, and how quick the conference committee can do their work.
Well, and the House is already, again, getting all that stuff out and ready to go. As far as the fiscal policy working group parts, down to the last 2 minutes here, do you think we're going to see any of these get up for a vote on the floor, any of these pieces or parts for this session?
We are putting them out there, certainly, so that they can be used as part of the end game. If, there should be some of the joint resolutions which will trigger, constitutional change. SGR 7, hopefully, HB 110, hopefully, all those are up in play and will be coming out of the House as soon as we figure that we are coming out of the committee, as soon as we get the votes for them. And, so that involves everybody being on board, and all the House majority being on board, and everybody understanding what exactly we're voting on. As Rep. Carpenter said, we're not voting on an income tax or a sales tax or any kind of tax. We're voting on a fiscal plan. And we just need to keep that in mind. Too many times people tend to separate them out. Even the news media does.
Right.
That's not the goal here. The goal is a fiscal plan.
Kevin McCabe, our guest. Thank you, Kevin. Hold the line for just a second. The Michael Duke Show continues. We got more coming up. Hour 2 dead ahead. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back with more right after this. All right. Final thoughts here from Kevin McCabe. I always like to give him a little bit of an extra bite, and he was kind enough to call in unannounced this morning, or impromptu phone call. So give him a chance to sound off. Kevin, your final thoughts here on, I don't know, the last days of the session, or anything else that we may have missed that you want to chat about. Here's your opportunity.
Sure. Well, you look at I'm focused on Ways and Means at this point, and when you look at the Ways and Means Committee and what we've done over the last 90 days versus, or almost 100 days now, 110 days, versus last year. I think last year it took Ways and Means 45 days or less to even hear a bill, and we've heard dozens of bills, and we're working on getting them out of Ways and Means. And you can't get a bill out of committee if you don't have the votes. So it all hinges on talking to the committee members and finding out whether or not they are willing to vote for whatever bill it is. So we're working pretty diligently at that. Rep. Carpenter is very effective, and he's a very good committee chair. And he made a commitment early on that we were going to hear all bills that came to Ways and Means. We were going to hear, and that's sort of the impetus for 165. Granted, we put that together, Ways and Means, so the committee put it together, but it's still an important bill. It still talks about finances. It's a chance to relieve some of the overcrowding, to give parents a better choice, and still almost a third of the cost of a regular student, which is a savings. So $7,200 versus $18,000, I think 200 that's a significant cost savings for a certain segment of our budget.
And of course, we've seen such an increase in, I guess we would call them unschooled, homeschooled, again, learning pods or teacher shares or all these other non-traditional ways of schooling. I mean, we're seeing nearly 20% of students who are outside of the regular school system now. That's a huge bump. And I think it's a trend that's probably going to continue as more and more parents discover that there are other options out there.
Right, and I think we need to create those options. We need to do everything we can. We need to focus on our children and on their upbringing and their education, and not so much on the school districts and the infrastructure and the administrations and the non-teachers. That's, to me, is more important than most of this discussion surrounding the BSA, if you want to know the truth.
Right. Well, because we need to find efficient ways to school our children and not get it all consumed in over. I mean, that's government's nature. Government's nature is to grow the bureaucracy. I mean, anecdotally, we've talked about even my time in high school. I remember, being in a high school in Fairbanks that had, 800, 900, 1,000 students. And there were like 4 or 5 administrators for all that, for the 20 or 25, maybe 30 teachers that they had. And today, it's almost a 1-to-1 match. And that's just, I mean, that's insane. I don't know. I mean, how have things changed so much in just the last, 30 years that all of a sudden you need a 1-for-1 match and all this stuff? It doesn't make any sense to me.
Right. Me neither. And I'm the product of a public education in northern Minnesota. But, when I went to school, the school district was one room in the high school with one administrator and a secretary. That was sort of the sum total of it. We didn't have all the huge number of employees and that sort of thing that are not teachers.
Yeah, no, I think I remember we had a principal, I think 1, maybe 2 vice principals, a secretary, and a guidance counselor. And that was pretty much it for all those students, 800, almost 1,000 students. So yeah, I got to ask the question, like, what? Right. Why do we need all these administrators, other than it becomes a jobs program for many of the folks who are in the administrative side of things? And we're losing the focus on what's important, which is teachers in the classroom. And like I said, like you said, right, the biggest question is, what is the education system for? Is it for the children, or is it for the system? Is it for the schools themselves? Is it for the administrators and the overhead and the unions and all that kind of stuff? So I think it's a valid question, Kevin. I think you guys you're headed in the right direction anyway.
Well, I hope so. We're sure working towards it.
All right, Kevin. Well, thank you so much for coming on board. I appreciate you sounding off this morning. Appreciate you being part of the program, especially at the last minute like that. Thank you for calling in.
You bet, Michael. Have a good day.
Thanks so much. Kevin McCabe, our guest here for impromptu guest for hour 1 of the Michael Duke Show. We appreciate that. All the phone lines are open if you'd like to sound off on any of the things that we've talked about. David has been making some valid points in the chat room, specifically about the healthcare system. And we've talked about this, consolidating the healthcare system and what that would mean for savings for many of the states. And I think this is a valid point. We should be talking about this because this is one of those big, line items in the budget that drives a lot of the budgets for the different school districts and everything. And I think we should talk about that as well. So feel free to sound off on that, David. If you want to call in, you can, or anybody else wants to comment on that. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. We're going to continue here, the Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. We got some other discussions to talk about this morning, and we will continue moving forward on this. Hope you had a great weekend. If you are ready to go, let's get it going on. Here we go. Hour 2, dead ahead. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio, the Michael Duke Show.
buddy, put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
That was just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show, streaming live across the world.
Oh, baby. Streaming live around the world on the internet at michaeldukeshow.com, where you'll find everything, including the links to our audio-only, just speaking of audio-only stream, I guess I forgot to start the audio only. Sometimes, it is a low budget radio show. What are you going to do? Find the audio only stream over at michaeldukeshow.com, where it's up and running right now. You'll also find links to our different social media sites where we simulcast the radio show every morning on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. And you'll also find links to the podcast, which is available on Castbox, Stitcher, iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and, of course, Spotify, our favorite place to go find the podcast as well. Also broadcasting live across the state of Alaska on this, your favorite radio station and or FM translator. Special thanks to all the stations and around the state that have picked up the show, and we appreciate you getting the word out to various listeners around the state of Alaska. I mean, we are broadcasting live from all the way out at Adak, kind of Dutch Harbor area, all the way up into the interior in Fairbanks, and we appreciate that. Probably, I would say, one of the largest reaching statewide radio shows that we have out there. All right. So today is open line, open forum, and we've been talking about the budget and education and everything else. We just finished up. Kevin McCabe was kind enough to call in and give us some details on HB 165, which is, I think, step one in creating some kind of backpack funding for students where the money follows the student and instead of following the school. And of course, we had the usual band of suspects who came on and decried it and told us how bad it was and what we should do. And, again, what I find interesting about this is kind of the absolute disdain that many legislators feel for parents who dare to challenge the status quo. And I'd like to think that it's just ignorance on their part. I don't know if it is or not, or if it's just, belief in a system that is, fundamentally broken at this point. Again, those that were opposed to this, opponents of the measure pointed out that while the bill could cause more public funding to be diverted away from public schools, it would not make running those in-person schools, which are mandated by the state constitution, any less expensive. Remember, this was the argument. Well, we got too many students in the class and we just need more money. That's really what the answer is. Not that we needed fewer students, but we needed more money for those same amount of students. And when an idea comes forward where you could take some of those students out of the classroom and kind of prevent that crush of, too many students per teacher kind of thing, and you find another way to do it, they immediately poo-poo that and say, well, you can't do that because parents are not certified and experienced teachers. They couldn't, they're not better And just, again, kind of the tone on this article. Who wrote this article? Iris Samuels wrote this article for the ADN. Kind of opponents also said that homeschooling is not a good fit for many families in the state for a variety of reasons, including parents who work full-time and parents who think that certified, experienced teachers may be better educators than they could be. Well, sure. That's why it's called choice. They could still put their kids in public school. They could still send their kids to certified, experienced teachers. This just offers an opportunity for others who think that they can do as good a job, or maybe they don't like a lot of the ancillary stuff that's attached to the schooling and everything else right now. Maybe that's what it's all about, right? They just want their kids to learn the basics of reading, writing, and arithmetic, and to help them develop a love of learning. Maybe they don't need all the extracurricular stuff and the cultural, the whole social justice aspect that we're seeing in schools these days. Maybe they don't need all that. All they want to do is teach them some of the basics and then give them the opportunity to learn what they want to learn. I mean, we're giving these kids all the opportunity now to do everything from, choosing their own gender to everything else. Why shouldn't they be allowed to learn what they want to learn? If a kid wants to get the basics of, again, reading, writing, and arithmetic, and then go off to learn about nothing but dinosaurs and all the things around, why shouldn't they be allowed to do that? I mean, again, if they could choose their own gender, that's not good for them to be able to choose what else they want to learn about? I mean, whatever. But again, just kind of the disdain, the message that I think this is from Andrew Gray, Anchorage Democrat who sits on House Ways and Means. The message that I think we're sending is that all kids would do better if their parents who don't have teaching credentials and have never taught a child before stayed home and taught. Well, that's not exactly what we're saying. I'm saying that from my perspective, yeah, I think kids would be a lot better off if the parents taught them at home. It would not be challenge-free for many parents for a variety of reasons, some of which were talked about earlier in the article, including parents who work full-time and all that other kind of stuff. But I find it offensive to think that you think that we have to have teaching credentials. And I mean, we've never taught a child before. If you've raised a child, you've taught a child. If you've gotten a child to 4 or 5 years old when they hit the kindergarten time and they're still alive and can operate and talk with people, then you have taught children before. It doesn't mean you have to have the official stamp or certification from the state to prove that you could teach your children. But that's one of the arguments. Remember, during the pandemic, people discovered that that teaching their children was not as hard as they were told. In fact, we saw many of them here who came on the program and in the chat room and other places who said, we didn't ever think we could do this. And then we ended up doing it. And we discovered not only was it easier than we thought, it was more fulfilling. And our children did better. I mean, if there was any silver lining in the pandemic, it was the fact that parents all of a sudden, because of the circumstance, forced by circumstance to take care of their own children's education, they discovered it wasn't nearly as hard as they were told. Right? Because they were told for years, oh, you're not smart enough to homeschool your kids. You're not, you just don't have the wherewithal. Oh, you should leave it to the experts. And then they discovered that not only was it easy, and in some cases, I think I want to say it was 4 different people comment directly in the chat room about the speed at which their children were learning and going through their schoolwork now, because they were one-on-one individualized and they were able to go at their pace rather than at the pace of the slowest student in the class. And there were at least 3 or 4 listeners who stated very specifically that their kids were going to graduate early or be done with the school semester early because they didn't have to wait around for the slowest student. They could get it done. They could do the stuff they were interested in, and they burned it out. I mean, I've talked about my eldest son. I mean, when I told him in junior high, or excuse me, as a junior in high school, I told him, look, you've got 2.5 more years left. And you can go at your own pace as long as you're doing what you need to do and yada, yada, yada. Once your schoolwork is done, you can, and you could finish it all at once and then have a month off or 2 months off. And that kid just burned that school out. He discovered what he liked to talk about, what he liked to read about. He did his basic classes, and he was done super early. Why? Because he could go at his pace. And I think that's just yet another example of how we can benefit from what's going on. So, yeah, I guess Gray is right in that regard. I think the message that I'm trying to send is that all kids would do better if their parents taught them at home. For whatever reason, the slower children that are the ones that were not, that were causing some of these bottlenecks in the classes, the parents know them better than anybody else. They can learn how to teach them to their learning style. The ones that were being held back by the slower students, and like I just said, can get done early, they can get done early and move on to do other things in life. You're right. Gray's right in that regard. Now, the idea that somehow teaching credentials make the biggest difference in teaching a child, again, the homeschooling statistics for the academic achievement of homeschoolers proves that fallacy right there. They don't want to talk about that. They don't want to talk about the fact that homeschooled children or kids who are in alternative learning, whether it's a Montessori or Magnet or Learning Pod or Teacher Share or whatever program they're in, that they statistically and historically have much better scholastic achievement scores than kids in the brick and mortar school. So it doesn't require a teaching credential to make it happen. It's just it's not there. Doesn't need it. But I'm glad that Ways and Means is discussing this and getting, although again, the whole tone of this article basically comes out with a chastisement for Ways and Means. How dare they take up this bill when they haven't done all the other things that they're supposed to do? This is how the article starts. The House committee tasked with addressing Alaska's long-term fiscal plan has yet to advance any of the dozen bills referred to it that would levy new taxes or change the structure of the PFD. But with less than 2 weeks to go until the end of the legislative session, the committee on Thursday advanced a bill that would increase annual spending on homeschooled students by millions of dollars. Gasp, can you believe it? They haven't done all the stuff that they were supposed to do. Instead, they went and did this. Just the tone of the article says it all, baby. Says it all. Anyway, so that's a good one. All right, so we'll drop that. I mean, I could talk about, as you know, lately, I could talk about the educational stuff all day long because I just find it so interesting to see how these people are dealing with it. Meanwhile, we got time for one more phone call. Let's go over here and see what you have to say. Good morning. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hello, Michael. This is Jason calling from Fairbanks. I had just sent you an email, a copy of the message I sent to Emma Camp, your guest from Reason Magazine last week. Haven't heard back from her yet, but I included some details about education and teaching when one is not a professional teacher that I thought you might find interesting. If you haven't received it, it'll be there in a few seconds. I just now sent it.
Okay.
But I was thinking about this, listening to you, is that I taught college when I was a kid in college. I was a tutor for a professor, and I was able to teach kids, even the slow kids. And all I needed was just the answer key book, which those books are very well written. They cover every step of a problem, if it's a math problem or if it's a science problem or if it's reading or, another subject. It goes into detail. So you can literally fake it until you make it. If you don't know the subject yourself, you can pass on that knowledge until you understand it fully yourself. And you can buy those books and reprints of them anywhere. So when I heard you talking about the legislatures and what their claims are about what parents can and cannot do, I call BS on them. I think what it is they're elites, and they think that only they are qualified to do such things, and that this quote unquote stupid parents can't do it. Well, those quote unquote stupid parents, my father taught me math and reading, and my mother taught me literature and other things. I learned to read before I even went to school, and neither of them went to college. My mother
Right.
never even finished high school.
Right. Right. No,
So,
I mean, I
no,
agree.
it's not that hard to teach.
No, I agree with you, Jason. I mean, it's interesting. Like you said, my wife had never finished high school as part of a health problem that she had. So she never officially finished high school, but she raised five children and have schooled four of the five so far. My youngest is going to graduate this year. Through the system. You know, what I found interesting, you talk about the teacher's key. What I found interesting is that early on, especially when we got a lot of actual physical books, because things over the last 15, 18 years have really gone more digital. But those first few years, we'd get the student manual for a certain subject, and then we get the teacher's manual, and it was like 3 times as thick because, as you said, it would go through the reasoning behind every question. It would go through the process of how did they solve this problem, whether it was science or math or something else. So you're right. As long as you have the ability to read and understand and comprehend, you could teach your kids exactly the same thing, especially when you have it all written out in front of you.
Exactly. And thing is, not only are those books still available, you can buy them from Amazon, Abe Books. Abe Books is especially a good source for them. But also, there are companies that are reprinting the old ones. They're doing pod printed ones and other ones like that. Actual physical copies. Now, I mean, you can get them on memory sticks too, but I prefer a nice regular paper and with binding book. So any parent who wants to, they can get those easily. I think what would be a great thing. I'll see what I can look up for you. Is sources where those books are available. You could maybe put on your website like a post-it or something where interested parents could buy those from there.
Yeah, no, I'll post them up on my Facebook page. Thank you, Jason, for calling in. I appreciate you being part of it today. Folks, we're up against the break. I got a couple lines on hold, but I got to take a quick one. So we're going to be back with more. We're going to talk a little bit about the House and the Senate and where they meet in the middle on the budget. That's up next. Plus Stedman's comments about, I think, how he's going to use time compression again as a weapon. We'll see how that works. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio.
What is that?
Common sense. Regularly heard on American radio. Michael Duke Show. Radio.
Okay, we're in the break right now. We got one line on hold. Caller, hold the line for a second. I'm going to be right back to you here. Don't go anywhere. I'm going to get your name and information here in just a second. We're going to be back here to you. Let me scroll backwards. Let me scroll backwards to see. I'm sorry. I gotta highlight this real quick. I got to go back and see what David was talking about. I want to talk about that here in just a minute. Okay. Back down to the bottom of the chat here. Kevin posted a great piece on North Dakota changing their defined benefits. Thanks, Kevin, for posting that. I'll go take a look at that. Maybe they don't want to force their child to sit down and pay attention for 7 hours a day, says Jennifer. I mean, right, because some kids are just not built that way in the very beginning. I had one kid where basically we would have to do, we do an hour or so of education and instruction, and then he'd have to leave his room and kind of wander around and come back and sit back down again and come back to it in a little bit. I mean, that's the way to do it. HB 21, the school district health care insurance bill, is up today in House Finance at 1:30. Parents could still pool their funds together and hire a real teacher. That's a teacher share program. We've talked about that. We talked about several teachers that were so frustrated. In fact, there was an article about one of them, I think it was in the ADN, talking about how some teachers, and you had to read between the lines to see what was going on, but they were so frustrated with the district's response to all the COVID stuff and the shutdowns and the remote learning and everything else that a couple of them are like, well, I'm just going to go. I mean, they ended up becoming tutors and teachers on their own. If you're frustrated, if you're a teacher and you're frustrated with all the palavering and all the BS that's going on, then, you could set up a teacher share program all on your own, where, again, several families pulled together and had you come in and help teach their children, several days a week on a variety of subjects. That makes total sense. Let me go over here real quick to the caller and get them squared away to see who they are. Good morning. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
This is Mark from Fairbanks.
Okay, Mark from Fairbanks. You hold the line, my friend. I'll be to you here. You'll be first out of the chute when we return from the radio. Okay, or return to the radio, I guess I should say. Homeschooling for us equals 3 days of school for core subjects, art, sports at regular school, and a part-time job making his own money. We both love it, says Denise. Yes, that's a great way to do it. Some people treat school more like daycare than expecting an education and then blaming everyone and everything else for the problems their child is having. I think in a lot of ways that's what's happened. We've created kind of this monster where it's an expectation of, it's really more about taking care of the children and taking the children off your hands than it is in the long run about education of the child and making them ready. My challenge with homeschooling has never been about my education level or abilities. I failed at it because my kid doesn't see me as the authority in teaching. He would refuse to interact with me and scream and fight me when it was school time. It wasn't always that way. We did pre-K and K when 3 and 4. Once he turned 5 and it was time to actually enroll him in a homeschool program and follow a set curriculum, things went downhill fast. Well, I have some commentary on that, but I guess it may not be for everybody. Maybe your kid would be better off in a learning pod or a teacher share program. That's for sure. We got a second line on hold. Let's go over there and get their name here real quick, and we'll see who they are. Good morning. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, good morning, Michael. It's David calling from.
Oh, hey, David, hold the line. You got one ahead of you, and we'll be right back to you here, okay? And then we can talk about the healthcare situation. All right, we got 2 lines on hold. We're going to return to this, and we're going to see what this is all about. We're going to get we're going to see what this is all comes down to. Okay, I'm looking at the comments here. Oh, there's some good commentary in here. Let's jump back into it. The Michael Dukes Show, common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio. Here we go.
The Michael Dukes Show. Not your daddy. Wait, sorry. Not your daddy? Ooh, not your daddy's talk radio. Whew. I was scared for a second. Thought we were going down. Here's Michael Dukes and the show.
Okay, continuing on now. Open line, open forum. I want to talk a little bit about the budget, but we've got some phone calls. So let's go over there. First, we're going to talk with Mark, who is up in Fairbanks. Mark, what's on your mind, my friend? What are you thinking today?
Good morning. Hey, I was just going to make a couple of quick comments about the education deal. Definitely more choice is better. More freedom for the individual, for the families, is definitely better. It's freedom versus the individual. It's freedom versus individual choice. It's partially. This is what the bottom line is. It's either the people on the other side who says you got to have the government schools and the highly educated. It's all about who's going to control your kids. It's all about who's going to control the money. That's all it's about. So it's freedom versus choice versus the individual family. It's all about who's going to indoctrinate your children. And so I also heard recently, I forget where, but I'm not going to quote this perfectly because I don't remember, but they're talking about the education, how the kids coming out of school, like barely 12%, and I'm probably wrong on the amount, but it was very low, have a basic understanding of our American history. They don't know it.
Right.
They don't know it. They're not teaching it, along with a lot of other traditional things. And so it's just like John Adams stated, quote from John Adams, our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate to the government of any other. Morality and virtue are the foundation of our republic and necessary for a society to be free and to remain free. The problem is that the traditional and moral values in this nation have been in decay for 50 or more years, and that's leading to destruction and leading to the mess that we see now.
Right.
And quite honestly, people don't want to hear it, but we need a revival of biblical truth and revival of Jesus. End of conversation. Anyways, thank you for the show.
Thanks for the call. I appreciate it. I mean, and I think again, a moral people is definitely what we need to be. And part of what we're seeing today is a decay in some of that thing. And I would agree with that. There's been a decay in morals across the country over the last 50 years, for sure. Thank you for your call. Let's go over here. David is down in Anchorage. David has been talking about some of the healthcare issues in the education system and some of those costs. David, who also writes for Must Read Alaska as one of their education guys. David, what you said some pretty interesting things in the chat room here this morning, talking specifically about the Anchorage School District not wanting to save some money, wanting to, in fact, they're going to increase the expenditures and more. Give us the rundown.
Yes, Michael, good morning. A few years ago, Senator Dunleavy, I believe it was, sponsored a bill to do just what the bill in the current legislature wants to do, allow the school districts, the boroughs, and all other local government entities to participate in the state's Alaska Cares health insurance plan. Back then, of the 5 major school districts, Anchorage, Kenai, Fairbanks, Juneau, and the Mat-Su, all but one of them wanted to participate in the state Alaska Cares health plan. That one was the big elephant in the room, called the Anchorage School District. This year, I have not seen any opposition written by the Anchorage School District under the current bill, and I can't remember the bill's number, but it's one sponsored by Sarah Vance from Homer. But the Kenai Peninsula Borough has come on record as supporting that bill, because they know, and they're actually undergoing all this problems with increased health insurance costs for their employees. They know that it's unsustainable going forward, and that they can save a tremendous amount of money by participating in the state's plan. Looking at the state's plan lately, I think it's around, for a family, I'm just going to estimate right now, it's around $15,000 a year. Now let's look at the Anchorage School District right now. For the teachers union, the teachers, let's say, it's $1,750 a month per member. That equates to about $21,000 a year, a significant difference of $6 million from the state's plan. $6,000 rather, from the state's plan per member. Now, when the Anchorage School District pays these premiums for the health insurance for the teachers, guess where that money goes? That goes to an organization called the Public Education Health Trust, which is managed by, guess who? The NEA or the teachers union.
Right.
So one can see why the Anchorage School District doesn't want this to happen, because, they're part and parcel of the NEA.
Right. I mean, we've seen that before, where if the monies are going to be drawn out of that and be used somewhere else where they're going to save money, the teachers unions are definitely not in favor of it, because they've got control of this huge fund to be able to do what they want with it. Even though ideally it would save them a tremendous amount of money, save the schools a tremendous amount of money. The same thing again on the consolidation of the districts. When we talk about that, they don't want that, because again, it would eliminate a tremendous amount of overhead from many of these places that have, if we've got 53 different school districts, then we've got 53 different administrations for each one of those school districts. If you consolidated them down to just a handful of districts, it would make a huge difference. I mean, if Hawaii, with however many hundreds of thousands of kids are in their school system, has one district for all the islands, why do we need to have 53 different districts, some of them with only a few hundred kids in them, compared to what's going on out there? But these ideas are immediately shot down because, well, people would lose their jobs, right? I mean, it really, so is it about teaching the kids? Is it about being efficient, or is it about being a jobs program?
Well, you're exactly right. It is quite a bit of a jobs program, unfortunately, for those teachers that are effective in all the classrooms that we have. But to give you an example of how much salaries and benefits in the Anchorage School District are going up from last year, they're going up $41.5 million salary and benefits from the previous year. That's an 8.5% increase. And they've also added 189 FTEs, or let's call them people, another 189 employees with, guess what, 5,000 fewer students than we had in 2017.
Right.
And with projections that we're going to lose another 5,000, these projections from the school district, we're going to lose another 5,000 students by the year 2027. So the bottom line is the health insurance in the Anchorage School District is 17% of the general fund, which is about $100 million for the health insurance for employees.
Right. And we could save a significant amount of money.
So in some of these contracts that we have in the Anchorage School District and probably the others, they have a clause in there called the Me Too clause. In other words, if your one union member gets increased benefits for their health insurance, the other union members get those increased benefits for their health insurance as well.
Right.
So if you want to pay $100 million in health insurance costs for the personnel in the Anchorage School District, have at it. The other problem is the Teamsters, the bus drivers, and they got a big increase, which I think was probably needed to keep the drivers on payroll. But the other thing is the health insurance for the Teamsters is $12.75 an hour, which is a little over $500 a week. So if you figure it out, that's another $20,000 plus per Teamster member. And the other thing is, just like the teachers union, guess what? That money that the school district pays for those members does not go to a health insurance plan per se. It goes to the Teamsters health plan with no accountability for the money spent. In other words, there's no claims history.
Yeah, no, it's a troubling trend. And again, if we were looking to cut, I mean, those are two major ways that we could cut the overall size and scope of the budget while still keeping the number of people in place, giving them exactly the same, if not a better healthcare plan in the long run for a much lower cost outlay in the long run. But again, this is where the fight's going to be. These unions, these organizations don't want to lose their access to those big, juicy funds of money. And that's definitely part of the problem. David, thank you for what you do. Thank you for keeping us apprised of that, and appreciate you calling in.
Thank you, Michael, for what you do too.
All right. Appreciate it. We're going to continue here. I guess one comment before we go to break. Melissa said, IDEA, which is the Interior Distance Education Association from the Galena City School District, which is the largest homeschooling organization in the state, takes money from our local school districts in Fairbanks. Enroll your kids in BEST, which is the borough-run, school district-run education plan, to which I say, no. It doesn't take money. They get money per student, just like everything else. And so the money goes to IDEA instead of to the Fairbanks North Star Borough School District. I don't think that takes, it does take money from the local. But again, what is the better program? Is BEST the better of the two programs? I would respectfully disagree. I think IDEA is a fantastic program. Again, showing why they are the largest homeschooling organization in the state. And my experience with them has been nothing but fantastic. So again, there's, here's the thing. The school districts either need to get more competitive, create a better program, do what they need to do, or they will get consumed by things like IDEA and other programs that are giving people more flexibility and giving them what they want and what they need, because that's what it's about. All right, we got more coming up. The Michael Duke Show continues. You're home for Common Sense Radio. Dead ahead. Budgets and more, plus your phone calls at 907-433-3150. Back with more right after this.
We're broadcasting live through a series of tubes.
Allowing all of these entities to provide streaming stuff going on the internet.
Well, it's kind of hard to explain. Sorry. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Okay. First of all, I want to comment on Brian, because Jerica was explaining the problem she was having with her kid, not thinking that he didn't see her as an authority in teaching, to which I said I had some commentary. I think Brian took it all away from me when he said when his kids bowed up, he drugged them out of bed at 6 a.m. one January morning, tossed them in the truck, and we cruised the road at negative 27 degrees. See those kids waiting for the bus? That could be you. 6 a.m., 5 days a week. This could be you. Any questions? They saw the light, so to speak. I mean, that's the thing. We got to stop treating our kids like they're going to be our best friends or something. They're kids. We are the authority figure. You bow up on me, guess what happens? Well, it's a privilege to live in my house, not a right, right? I remember there was a period of time in my household where I changed the internet password every day, and they did not get access to that until after they had accomplished a certain number of goals and missions that I set out for them. And that didn't last too long. It didn't last too long. Maybe a month. I had to come up with 30 different passwords for the internet, because sometimes you got to do what you got to do, right? That's just how it works. Again, this whole thing about IDEA taking money from the local school districts, IDEA offered an opportunity. IDEA offered an opportunity that was different than what the school districts were offering, and that money went to them instead. And that's what the idea of kind of this free market competition is about. The BEST program only came about because IDEA was in the market, and the BEST program is still not the best. Still not the best. One of the best arguments for homeschooling is the Alaska location argument. If you want to live in a specific place that's not close to a school, it's too far to drive a bus or do anything else, then correspondence school might be the best for you and your kids. Would it not be smart to encourage that? Would kids not be better educated? Or is there another agenda, such as forcing us all to live on top of each other in a city? Yep. Emily says, I think what we are seeing here is that education must be re-examined and restructured. Homeschooling works well to develop a child's core values, ethics, and develop a love for learning. I love that your wife taught your children despite not finishing high school. That takes a ton of courage fighting against the status quo. I loved homeschooling my children. Yeah, I agree. All right. Going through the elections, HB 21, less cost, better outcomes for teachers, HB 21. Being heard in House Finance today at 1:30. Yep. The issue is never the issue. The issue is power. And I would agree with that at many levels in this legislature. Best Fairbanks North Shore Rural School District actually makes money from funding IDEA. The idea is not from the Fairbanks School District. It's from the Galena City School District. They make money from BEST probably because they still get the per pupil charge and they're able to bank the rest of the money that comes in on that, I'm sure. So, that would probably, and besides, they still get all the dollars from every individual property owner out there anyway. So property owners are already paying into it. I still pay property taxes in Fairbanks. I still pay into the school system, even though none of my kids attended any of the local school systems. That's just how it works. They're getting money anyway. I don't think you have to worry too much about the school district getting kicked into by other school systems out there, because they're still getting money from everybody everywhere anyway. That's what it's all about. All right. And not every kid responds to the same disciplinary tactics, says Jay. I tried the hard parenting, literally tried everything. I had to do a lot of research. I had to learn new ways of approaching situations with my son. We learn and grow every day. All we can do is the best we can do with what time we have, or what we have at the time. If you're not learning something new every day, you're not growing. If you're not growing, are you really living? Well, that's the whole, if you're not green, if you're green, you're growing. If you're ripe, you're rotten, right? You can't keep trying the same things over and over and expecting different results. It is hard. It's hard. Each child is a little different. And with 5 kids, trust me, I had to learn that. Some, it could just be a raised voice or a harsh word, a scolding. Others, it took a little bit more. It took a little bit of a different approach. That's what happens out there. Okay. All right. Let's get things going, and we will continue. One final segment dead ahead, the Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Like and share, like and follow, do all this stuff. Let's get to it. Here we go. Okay, here we are in the final segment. I mean, it is the fastest 2 hours in radio, folks. You just can't make this stuff up. I don't know how we got here so fast, but let's get over here and talk a little bit about the overall budget. James Brooks over at the Alaska Beacon has got an article up, and they're still working on the budget with 9 days remaining in the legislative session. And they still haven't reached the finish line on this stuff. Kathy Tilton's quoted in the article, says, "We're meeting daily with the Senate, just working on finding some way to come together to put this kind of end game package together, which I can tell you right now, we don't have the details of yet." But Brooks makes an interesting commentary here, which I find very interesting. Since 2015, odd number years have brought tortuously long arguments over the budget as lawmakers debate the proper amount of the permanent fund dividend. Without a state election season to encourage quick action, regular legislative sessions have been followed by special 30-day sessions, and lawmakers have frequently approached the July 1st deadline for the start of the fiscal year. It's odd number years. So almost for 10 years now, every odd number year has brought an exorbitantly long process, because they don't have to get out and go electioneering, right? They don't have to go out and do the election thing. And so they can just sit around and kind of wait on it. That's interesting. That's an interesting commentary. Now, if we did take the PFD off the table, if we constitutionalized it, if we protected it, if it was set not in statute, but in the Constitution so that they couldn't take the opportunity to just pick it and choose it, then this might speed things up a little bit, because they wouldn't have to wait around to the July 1st deadline to get it done. The debate this year, again, is over the permanent fund. The House approved a draft that contains the $2,700 dividend and $175 million boost to the public school funding, one-time boost instead of a BSA increase. But they do those items create a substantial deficit, which would have to be covered by the CBR. Spending from that requires a supermajority in the House and Senate. The the Senate, for its part, advanced an alternative budget. This one includes a $1,300 dividend and no spending from the budget reserve. Although I believe at the last numbers that I saw, it still leaves us, because they want to increase the base student allocation, it still leaves us with a slight deficit in the end, even though they are not telling you how they're going to fund it at this point. During a Tuesday news conference of last week, leading senators said they're unlikely to approve spending from the reserve, which stands at about $2.6 billion, even though the state drew more than $1 billion from that same reserve to cover budget deficits in the last two. They did it the last 2 years, but this year, oh no, now they found religion. Now they found a reason why they should not. This is all a process, a negotiation process, said Senate President Gary Stevens. A compromise that has to take place. I think we've made it clear that where we are. I believe there's a real disinterest amongst most senators to go into our savings account when savings are as low as they are. The account was even lower when they've gone. This is just hysterical, because this is all, again, just, oh, well, now we're not running the narrative on. Well, then we don't want to spend from the savings account. I mean, they've spent from the savings account for years. They've spent it down from $14 or $15 billion down to where it is today for years. All of a sudden they're like, well, now we can't do that. That's not fiscally responsible. We can't. Oh no. Basically, where do we go from here is the question. Procedurally, the Senate hasn't formally approved its plan with a vote of all 20 senators, but during informal hallway conversations, the idea appears to have enough votes to pass, according to James Brooks here at the Alaska Beacon. A draft schedule circulated among House and Senate leaders last month called for the Senate to approve its version of the budget this week. That would be last week from this article, but that didn't happen. For the time being, said Bert Stedman, Sitka, Republican, the two bills that make up the budget are being kept in the Senate Finance Committee for flexibility. I could just hear him curling his mustache. Flexibility. He's flexibility, i.e., how do I make this that I can strong-arm people to vote for this one way or the other? He's leaving them in committee for flexibility. He doesn't want it to go out on the floor for a vote, because then it needs to get over to the House, and then the conference committee would have to get started, and he wants to make sure that this gets down to the very wire. This, again, is time compression as a weapon. They're going to hold it back as much as they can and release it at the last moment, and then tell everybody, well, we don't have time for this conference committee because otherwise the government's going to shut down, and so we need to get it done now. Which is, again, the perfect tactic that he has perfected that tactic over the years. This is nothing new, folks. But what needs to happen is somebody needs to call his bluff on that kind of stuff. They are literally leaving them in committee until the last possible second, so that then when it does get pulled out, then you don't have any time to think about it. You don't have any time for any other alternatives. It's going to be our way or the highway, or we're going to blame you for the government shutdown. Now, the House has been done with their version of the bill for quite a while. But now the Senate's got the news media on their side. You just look at the press releases. You look at what's being covered. They've got what'll happen. Oh, they'll blame the House for not budging, even though the House has been done for a while. They'll blame it on the House for not wanting to budge. They've been sitting on these bills for 8-9 days now, sitting on them, and they're leaving them there for flexibility. I can see what's going to happen already. They're going to drop this out just a few days before the end of the session, and then tell everybody, "Oh, you gotta do what we ask, because there's just no time. There's no time to compromise. There's no time to come together. Otherwise, it'll be a shutdown, and you'll be responsible for it." Even though we've been the ones that have been sitting on this for. I mean, I would hope that people like James Brooks would recognize this fact and call a spade when it comes out, right? That when it comes out, he goes, well, the House had theirs out and the Senate really just kind of dawdled up until the last minute. And now they're saying that the House is responsible for the potential government shutdown. But really, they were the ones that had the ball last, and they're, But I am not confident that would be the way that the article comes out. I guarantee you there will be a hue and cry to somehow blame the majority in the House for any potential shutdown that may come about. You know, it's just astonishing. But I think that's what's going to be happening. That's what's going to be happening. So we'll see what happens. But I can almost I'm trying to predict here what's gonna come out of this, and I can guarantee you that's probably what it's going to look like. I would pay money on the fact that that's what it's going to look like, that they're going to hold it up till the last minute. It'll probably be maybe Thursday or Friday of this week. They'll finally drop it. It'll come up. Oh, now we got to form a conference committee, but we just don't have time. And it'll be that time compression in that last 2 or 3 days of the session where they just can't come to, and it's going to be the House majority's fault because reasons. Because first of all, they're not favored by the news media. And so that's the kind of coverage they're going to get. And the Senate will be like, well, we were trying to be reasonable. We're trying to be reasonable. I mean, this is the games that are being played down there right now. This is it. And this is the same kind of stuff that we've seen Stedman do for years, whether it was holding funding back for road projects like the Kinnick Goose Bay Road project, where if you didn't vote for it, he was going to defund that project, or where he made the turducken bill, where he stuffed bills inside of bills, or the ones that were contingency bills that you had to vote for this, and if you didn't vote for this, then this wouldn't pass. I mean, just the shenanigans that we're seeing around this whole thing is astonishing. Just astonishing. But that's my prediction. That's my prediction for the end of the session, that they're going to hold this to the last minute. It'll probably be Thursday, maybe even Friday, when they vote on it and it gets passed over to the House. And by then, well, you've only got the weekend. Mother's Day this weekend, right? So, I mean, is everybody going to be there, or we'll only have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday to get it done? It just won't be enough time. Oh, the House majority is trying to shut us down. I can see it. We'll see how close I am by the end of the week. We'll see where maybe we'll see. Out of time, folks. Tomorrow's another day. Be kind. Love one another. Live well. The Michael Duke Show. I hope I'm wrong. I really hope I'm wrong. But I don't believe I am. Again, the House has been done forever. And the Senate's like, well, we're just holding it back for flexibility. No, you're holding it back so you can strong-arm people. That's what it's about. You're holding it back so that when the time comes, you can drop it and say, well, this is the only choice because we're out of time. Sorry. I mean, do you not see that? All right, we got to go. Thanks for coming in and joining us, The Michael Duke Show. Common Sense, Liberty Base, Free Thinking Radio.
Goodbye.
We've shed our terrestrial, and now we are slimy lizard internet people. It's the Michael Duke Show.